Hey guys, welcome in this evening on Off the Top Media, presenting Prince's Movie Corner. Tonight it will just be me, and my guest host this evening will be Matt. We will be discussing Nickelodeon 90s cartoons, Cartoon Network 90s cartoons, and a little in general 90s cartoons itself. So I'm gonna throw it over to my co-host to let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Matt, aka Pro Skulls.
All right, I'm gonna come back to me. I'm gonna start off with my personal favorite '90s cartoon of all time. It's on the other '90s list, and that would be Batman the Animated Series. Even though it only lasted for 2 seasons, but it did a total of 85 episodes. It introduced a lot of the backstories that if you didn't read the comics as a kid, which myself I did, you would know a little more in detail about what was going on the backstories, like the backstory of the Joker, the backstory of Tim Drake, all the Robins involved, how his villains became the way his villains were. And then the unfortunate part, not too recently, Kevin Conroy had passed away, which I was very saddened by. That's one of I still watch it to this day. And I started watching it earlier in the week to get a little refresher course on it, to rewatch some of the episodes to see if little things I had missed or not, because that was some 20 plus years ago. So that's my first one. Matt, what is your view on Batman the Animated Series?
I've seen some of the episodes, not all of them, so I'm not really familiar with the other seasons.
Right. But did you know all the backstories and everything before you watched it, or like did you know the true story of the Joker? Because there's different variations of the stories of the Joker, of his backstory.
No, I did not.
Okay. And of course, we had someone from Star Wars that did the voice of the Joker, and that would be Mr. Mark Hamill, who did a very, very good job and still does it to this day in the animated movies and stuff. He still does the voice of the Joker. So, yeah, I wish Prince was here to talk about that, but that's another story. Yeah, that's another line. Next on my list is going to be Ren and Stimpy. They pushed the limit before South Park did. I thought it was done very, very well, and I'm not positive off the top of my head how many seasons they did, but they did it for quite a while. Even the reruns, it would come on every Saturday and every Sunday morning. They pushed the envelope, and that was on Nickelodeon, which was very, very odd for Nickelodeon to run that type of cartoon on their network. Because they were always more, to me, a quote-unquote family-oriented cartoons. That's just my view. You may not agree with my view. And I'm sure there are people that are not going to agree with my view, but I hope there are some people that do agree with my view. What did you think of Ren and Stimpy?
Good, and I agree with the view on that. They should have put it on Nickelodeon on that platform. for kids.
They should have ran it a little like they did with, I don't know if you remember Space Ghost.
Oh.
Well, they did a talk show version of Space Ghost, but it was done on the Cartoon Network, done at like 11 o'clock at night. So that wasn't when, quote unquote, kids were up again. So that's, as a parent, that's how I see it. As having kids, if I was a parent back then, that's how I would have seen it. I might have been like my mother who banned MTV when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. So, give me what would be your number one? What something you enjoyed as far as the 90s cartoons on Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network? Give me one.
Either the Rugrats or Recess.
And why would one of those be one of your favorites?
Because I grew up on the Rugrats with the VHS tape.
Right.
And I enjoyed watching the Recess and the movies.
I remember the movies. I just don't ever really remember. I remember it. I just never really watched it. It wasn't kind of my cup of tea at the time because there is an age difference gap here between.
Yeah.
So there's a little difference.
Yeah.
So I respect that. That's what you enjoyed. I just never could get into it. The Nickelodeon I remember growing up, and the Nickelodeon you remember growing up might be a little bit different, of course.
Yeah.
So those would be your top. What other ones do you have? Yes, I'm okay. Yes, sir. Skiles, I'm okay if you join us. Yes, and no, it was, and it's happened. You're correct. They did it on a Saturday and a Sunday during the morning, also, but they did do it at late night. Also, you are correct.
Yeah, because I do remember it being on later nights, so they got away with a lot of stuff in regards to that. Because you also had, wasn't Beavis and Butthead teamed with that as
It
well?
was 90s. You also had As Long as It's Run, and that is South Park. A lot of people forget it was done in the late 90s.
Yeah,
And
that's when it was
look how
started.
long it's Family Guy,
Mm-hmm.
same thing. So there's a lot of those cartoons that push that envelope. Push that envelope very, very close. And Family Guy got canceled. Not because of the content they came up with, but it had gotten canceled and was brought back to, I believe, the Cartoon Network, and then went back again to Fox. I believe, but don't hold me that at 100%. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong. It won't be the last.
And I feel like I'm the bridge between the two of you because I've watched both. Because I grew up watching Rugrats as well. And Rugrats to me was probably one of my favorite cartoons with Tommy, Chucky, and all of them. Phil and Lil. Like, I watched that from the beginning all the way until the ending when it was done. So I wish that still was going on because that was probably one of my favorite cartoons as well.
Right. Uh, what about your view on the Batman series?
So the Batman series, I was not into that as much, But from what I do remember, I do love the scenes that they had with it. Like there was good action scenes, and I do recall Mark Hamill being the voice. I know he was recently doing it again, but I think he stepped away, if I'm not mistaken.
Animated movies that they done, he did not do the voice.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for the follow, Jamie. Appreciate it.
hmm.
Nope, we had somebody follow the channel while we were here, so I was just thanking them to follow from following.
Okay.
What would be your one of your favorites out of the ones that we haven't, the ones that we've discussed that have not been brought up yet?
I'm partial to Animaniacs also.
Steven
Yes,
Spielberg.
Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, like all those. Those were my after school. Like you came from school, and that's what you put on. You put on Channel 11. You watched all the cartoons, and you just sat there. You did your homework. You watched them, and you just laughed because everything was funny, and some of them were over the top. It just was such like. I still go back and watch Animaniacs and Tiny Toons to this day.
And what channel can you find those on?
I stream them. I don't really find them. I don't know what channels to find them. I'll find them on YouTube and stuff like that just to see little clips of them.
Another one of my favorite was the Xman series.
Yes, I do remember that.
And speaking of the Xmen series, it is coming back to cheap plug to Disney Plus. They're doing a whole new series. It's going to be called Xmen 1997 or 97.
So is it like a revamping of that series?
They didn't go into when it was the information was released last year. They didn't go into full details. They just said a series would be coming out following what was originally done back in the 90s.
Okay. Might have to go rewatch that to see if it's a continuation or if it's just a redoing of it.
I hope it's a continuation because there's so many stories they could do with the X-Men that certain things they couldn't do in the films. Because there'd be so many X-Men films they would have to make, and you would just drain people out of that. But I've gone back and, of course, me being the comic book nerd I am, I watched all episodes, all the old ones all the time. Even though it's not full screen, it's in that stinking pan scan where you have the black coming up the sides. I still enjoy going back and watching old episodes. And then another one would be Superman. Superman, the voice of Superman was done by Tim Daly from Wings. Superman is probably my favorite comic book character, even though I am a Flash fan. But I always enjoy going back and watching. I enjoy going back and watching a lot of old stuff. I'm not real big into the new animated series animation. It just doesn't do it for me.
Well, a lot of the stuff nowadays is just completely different than how it was. Like most of the things now are computer generated. Back then, it was actually done on set. Like it was just the way it was done. It was all hand drawn. Everything else, it just was so good. Those little details made a difference, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I would, and I guess it's my age. That's another big thing. And I've tried to watch some. And it's just too out of my element to get into it.
You're talking about the Superman animated series, right?
That is correct. Yes,
It only ran for 3 seasons,
I know.
from '96 to 2000.
Didn't last long. Batman only lasted 2 seasons, but it was a continuation run, and then after that, it's not a '90s cartoon, but they did Batman Beyond.
You're talking about the Batman animated series, right?
Right.
The one that came out in '92.
Uh-huh.
It says it went for 4 seasons.
Well, I Wikipedia.
The seasons were different back then, also.
Yes. So you don't know when it began and when it ended.
Mm-hmm.
It had a total, I think, 95 episodes.
Season 4 only had 5 episodes, so that's really hard to count that one. Season 3 had 10. Yeah, so it probably was a total of 90 because the first season had 60.
Oh,
And then after that, it dropped off. So just imagine if they went and did the 60 per season.
I would love it even more. And I'll tell you this: HBO Max has helped out the whole animated series with DC. I believe they show every single entire cartoon, any movie that's been done. They show it. That's just how I see it. I don't know if you agree with that or if you've watched any of them.
We have somebody in the chat is saying it's Acknowledged Pro Wrestling is the chatter. OG Ben 10 was legendary, he said.
I watched Ben 10, yes.
Never watched it. I've heard of it.
Yeah, I've never watched it either. So if you want to speak about that, Matt.
I seen it, but I don't know all the monsters that Ben 10 had from his watch thing.
Okay.
Did you ever watch either? I asked Matt this, but I'll ask you. Did you ever watch Space Ghost, the talk show?
The talk show?
Yes, it was Space Ghost, talk coast to coast.
I don't remember. Like it was the cartoon at night, wasn't it?
Yeah,
on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to watch that. I thought that was a pretty good cartoon.
It was.
There used to be other stuff on like that was when they had Johnny Bravo, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Johnny Bravo, Samurai Jack.
Yeah, I didn't watch Cartoon Network that much. Most of the stuff that I did enjoy was either on Nickelodeon or on the WB, but I do remember some of those.
Yeah. And the other one I liked was Pinky and the Brain.
Yes.
Yes.
That was part of Animaniacs at the end.
I know they brought back Animaniacs to this PG era instead of all that.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Stuff.
Not the same.
Yeah. Nope, not the same from the 90s. I mean, some of it's good, but it's not.
Nah,
the jokes are not there.
Yeah, if they ran those cartoons now, oh man, they would be off the air after one episode. Maybe cancel culture would take them out.
And
how about the Puff Girls?
Yes, I've seen it.
I've never.
I could never get into it. Like I was interested in how it was because it seemed interesting, but then I just watched it and it was annoying. Like it was annoying.
No, I could never get into it.
I seen like a few episodes. I didn't really get into it. The only thing I liked was the monkey, Mojo Jojo. That's the only one person I liked.
Let's see what other cartoons were out there from then.
It was not an easy subject.
I mean, there were some really good ones. There were some that just like they were short and sweet though. Like if you watch Disney Channel, you had Tailspin.
Tailspin, yes.
You had Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. You had Darkwing Duck. You had DuckTales. So like you had really good ones on Disney. You had the Mighty Ducks animated series. Like there was good ones, but they weren't sustainable. and I think that's what hurt Disney with those cartoons.
You had Courage, the
Courage the Cowardly
Because
Dog. Yep.
yep.
Steve Universe, like you said, Johnny Bravo,
Yeah.
Ed, Eddie, Ed,
Ed,
and
Ed and Eddie.
and Eddie.
Yep. You had Cat
Yes.
Dog.
Cat Dog, yes. Love Cat Dog.
You had that was in the 2000s. I was gonna say Teen Titans, but that was in the 2000s.
Gargoyles
Yes.
was
Seen some of
that was
those.
one of my favorite ones. I like that one. Hey Arnold.
Yes, Hey Arnold, yes.
You said you liked Recess. The other one.
Yeah.
Was that wasn't the one with the skateboard, like they were roller skating, right? What was that one?
Rocket Power?
Rocket Power, yes. That was another
Yes.
good one. Salute Your Shorts was like not an animated one, but that was another Nickelodeon one during that time.
There was one on MTV, and it began with a Dyra or
not Dora. It was. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'll look it up.
What? Daria or whatever it is?
Daria.
yeah,
Yes.
that I enjoyed that one. And the person that did the voice was not the one I thought had done the voice for it. The one I thought was an actress who had she'd done a bunch of Ben Stiller movies before, and it wasn't her. It ended up being someone I had never even heard of. And
So acknowledge to answer your question. Courage the Cowardly Dog started in the 90s, but most of it was in the 2000s. It was near the tail end of 1990s.
Yeah.
huh?
I thought it was earlier too.
Yeah, Recess was like 1996 or 7. So yeah.
And then Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis Butthead. What other ones?
That paved the way for South Park.
Yes, you are
Without
correct.
that, South Park would never have happened. Never,
Yeah, then you had-
neither would Family Guy. Like that gave everybody the ability to believe that it can be done.
Then you have the Simpsons that
I was just gonna say we have forgotten the one that's been around the longest and still has new episodes. The Simpsons.
The Simpsons.
Do you
They,
watch The Simpsons?
Occasionally,
yes,
I'll still watch it. Yeah,
predict mostly everything that happened.
they predict everything. That is correct.
I'll usually Halloween episode.
Yes, the Halloween ones are the best ones.
The House is Tor. Treehouse of Tor.
It hasn't. It's changed from when it first came out. Obviously, I would say by the first 10 years were probably the best years of it, but it is still going strong. The person who, the creator, Matt Groening, actually was from my hometown.
No.
He graduated from the same high school that I did, so that's a nice little fun fact.
Huh. That's fun. You ever met him?
No, I never met him, but it was just weird to know that the person who came up with The Simpsons was from the same town that I was.
That is.
I was gonna say that to acknowledge. He brought up the Power Rangers. As much as it's not an animated, it's still in that '90s era, but it's not a cartoony. It's more of a live action. But I grew up on the Power Rangers. The other one you could say, Pokemon, but wasn't that more towards the 2000s, the early 2000s? It came out on TV.
I believe. Yes.
Yes, but yeah. I think 1990s, 2000s, somewhere around there.
But then I could see your point, the person's point with the Power Rangers, your kids
Mm-hmm.
at that age. So I can see that. I just was never able to get into it.
So I watched like the first, I would say, 4 seasons where you got to see the Green Ranger and then you got the White Ranger, and then after that they went to the Ninja, because then you had the movies, and then I just lost track with Turbo and all these other things. How they just kept changing,
Yeah, they had different ones.
and they still
The
have them.
only
Like
mo-
they still come out. So it's like it's probably one
yeah,
of the longest sustaining ones that's out there. I just could never
like
get into them.
there was Dino Thunder, Ninja Steel, and a bunch of other ones that came out in the
They do have a special coming to Netflix in April. On the
Yes,
Power.
third. Yes, I seen that.
with people from the original series.
Yep.
Yes.
And the only movie I liked from the Power Rangers was The Secret of the Ooze.
Wasn't that wasn't the original one, right? Is it? Or was that the second one? There was Power Rangers
It's
the
the one.
movie, and then it wasn't Power Rangers Secret of the Ooze, right?
I think so. I don't remember.
Let's see.
But and I read that the girl who played the Pink Power Ranger was not coming back for the special.
Yeah, because her and Jason David Frank were very close.
Oh, were they?
Yes. They were actually in the 2017 revamping of it, and they were supposed to continue that series, and it never got greenlit for the second one to introduce the Green Ranger.
No, yeah, it has it.
Because they were supposed to have five. They had like 5 movies planned for that one, and then after the first one, they couldn't agree on terms to do any more of them, so it just ended. Yeah, Amy Jo Johnson. Thank you. Acknowledge.
Yes, that was her name. She had a even after she left when she originally did the Power Rangers, she had a brief career in Hollywood. She did a couple shows for CBS. One was a medical drama. One was a pop drama, and that was the last I had ever heard of her until last week when she popped up on my Entertainment Weekly magazine on Twitter. That she said she was not going to be doing the special on Netflix. And that's the first time I'd heard anything about her in years.
Yeah, like I said, she was in the 2017 movie. They had a little cameo at the end, her and Jason David Frank. But I haven't heard much from her after that either.
And I hope for the special they do something during it for him for his passing away. I hope they dedicate or something like that. I think they should, but that's just
Oh,
my.
I think they will. I don't know if this was actually in the plans before that happened, because I never hear anything about this until recently. So I'm curious as if this came about because of that.
That I can tell you. You two are more Power Ranger guys than myself, so I cannot answer that. But I know they're going to do another TV run. I thought I had read a while back that also.
They still do it. Like, season 30 is coming out this year on Netflix. It's called Cosmic Fury. So
Okay.
So that's it, like the new one.
That's the newest one
coming out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
30 years of Power Rangers. It debuted in 1993, and they've had a new season every year. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like Dino's Thunder.
Well, the last one was Dino Fury. Dino Fury.
Yeah. Before that was Ninja Steel
Yeah, there's so many of
and
them.
all those. Yeah.
Space Rangers, like all different ones.
Yep,
I mean, we could have a whole show just on Power Rangers if we all wanted to
I
sit there and go
know.
through and read everything on it.
Well,
With the 30 seasons.
are they all available?
I
All
think they're
29?
all, honestly, I think they are all available on Netflix. Because my daughter went through and was watching them back in 2016 to lead up to the movie. So I know at one point, I think she watched like the first 8 seasons on Netflix. So if they are still there, then yes, all 30 seasons would actually be on Netflix. And if you're ever that bored, that'll keep you busy for a while.
Yep. For a few weeks.
Guess what? I'm looking right now. Season 1 was 60. The way they have it, it goes back till 2010, and that's where it starts. It has 60.
So they're all different labels. Like you have to look for different names because every season is a different name.
All right, the one I'm looking at right now is Morton Mutant Power Rangers.
Okay, so you'd have to look Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That was the original one. They like I said, they change every season because Mighty Morphin was only 3 seasons. That was seasons 1, 2, and 3, and then it switched after that.
All right,
And
that's the one.
and then you had the new Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's when you had Jason replaced when the Red Ranger got replaced. So like there was a lot. Hey Kane, how are we doing tonight?
All right, I'm gonna have to check that out down the road. Give me something different.
What else? What other stuff did you want to talk about?
You wanted to talk about your Justice League?
Actually, I went back. Justice League didn't fall into that time area. It fell into the 2000s. I wanted to verify and make sure. I went and looked the other night. It was in the 2000s, so unfortunately, it won't be able to fall in this discussion. But that's all on my list. How about for you, Matt?
That's all on mine. I don't think I can think of any right now.
So let's see. What was the other cartoons that were good back in the day? What about Doug?
Yes, I seen Doug and Cow and Chicken and
Cow and Chicken was another one. Real Monsters. That might be more your generation too, Brian. I don't know if you remember
yes, I
that one.
seen the Real Monsters. Yes.
Real Monsters. That was also on Nick at Night. That was teamed up with the Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead.
I can't remember that.
Yeah, there was so many good shows back then. I just wish.
Yeah.
I wish they had stuff like that now.
And I was born in '91, so yeah.
See, Our Real Monsters was that was that generation's version of Monsters Incorporated and Monsters University because they essentially did the same thing. They went around scaring people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Monsters Inc. Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of different things. Like, oh, Tim Curry was in that too. I never realized that. Jim Belushi. These cartoons always had good casts. Like all these people that were in it, and you never knew because all it was their voice. Like because you always try and put a face to the voice. It's hard to do if they're animated characters.
And you don't know who they are unless you like when the internet came out. Unless nowadays you go back and you do research on it and try to find out what roles they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Was Rocko's Modern Life '90s or is that
92 to 96? I was looking that up. That was a good one too. I like that one. Angry Beavers.
Who can forget Angry Beavers?
Trying trying to think of what else there would be around the early 90s that Brian might remember. I'm surprised you don't remember Rugrats, Brian, because that came
I
out in
don't.
91.
I have a better memory of 80s cartoons than I do of the 90s. I could go on for days talking about the 80s cartoons, and that will be a subject matter for another discussion, but I remember the 80s cartoons very well. I guess it's because I kind of grew out of certain things. 'Cause in the 90s, I was in high school. Yes, I'm showing my age. You can see my age because of my lack of my hair.
I think we're all in the same boat on that one now.
Yeah. Mine's going back. Yeah.
I just had lost a lot of interest in stuff.
Acknowledge brought up SpongeBob.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
I mean, it has been around since 1993, so that technically could be considered a 90s cartoon.
Technically, it is a cartoon type thing. So yeah.
But how about like let's say like for example, Tom and Jerry. Would you consider that a continuation cartoon, or since it's been continued on all throughout whenever it originally started? It was I know it was in the 80s, of course, in the 90s, and it's continued on. Would you say that?
I mean, it evolved as it went on, so
Mm-hmm.
there could be, you could say that that adaptation of it from those years could be considered.
Okay.
Because it has changed, like with that Garfield, yeah, Garfield and
Okay.
Friends, like it evolved to keep up with the times of the changing cartoons and how everything was.
Yep. Same with the Tom and Jerry movie. So yeah.
So
I forgot about the Tom and Jerry movie that was on HBO. Not too.
there was a bunch of them. My daughter used to love watching those, like Curious George. Would you consider that an older cartoon, or would that be a '90s cartoon?
Ah,
What time? What year did it come out?
a continuation, like you would throw in with the Tom and Jerry effect. You know, it's a continuation. It changes with the times. Bugs Bunny is the same. Anything with Looney Tunes has changed over time.
See, this is Curious George came out the first time was in 2006.
Curious.
I really
I
thought
remember.
I really
Kid.
thought it was before that because I used to watch.
Yeah,
it
I
as a
remember
kid.
that.
I remember that as in elementary school. I could
Yeah,
have
Wasn't
sworn
it?
so there must have been
maybe it was just because of the.
interesting.
Was Roly Poly early 90s or 2000s?
Roly Poly Roly, you said?
Roly Poly Oly.
That was 98 was the first year.
Okay.
That went on for
'Cause
6 years. That ended in 2004.
yeah, I remember watching that. Then there was what other one?
Yeah, there's a bunch that came out in the 2000s as well.
Yeah.
Geez, some that I didn't even know. Ugh, that was not one that I would watch.
What?
Caillou.
I remember Caillou.
I have no idea.
You
There was
be
Caillou. There
grateful.
was
Be grateful.
Okay.
was it Franklin? It
Franklin.
was
Yeah, there was a lot in the early 2000s that were okay. But yeah, I used to, like I was saying earlier, I used to like the ones after school. You had the whole Disney ones on Channel 11. You had Tailspin, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, like those were all good action ones. They had the Jungle Book as a cartoon series, DuckTales, Darkwing
yeah.
Duck. But
Was see There was another one I thought of. Wild Thornberries. Was that 90s or 2000s?
Wild Thornberries was the end of the 90s. I think that was a crossover between the two decades. Yeah,
Yeah,
it started in 98 and it went to 2004.
I remember watching that.
Yeah, that was a little past my time. We mentioned Cat Dog, Rocket Power. I'm trying to think what else there was. I'm looking through the list.
Is Ninja Turtles 90s or 2000s?
Oh, Ninja Turtles. There was many generations of Ninja Turtles
Very. I remember it in the 80s.
because that's when it was originally first. Like that was when it was big. You had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. Those came out in the early 90s.
Yeah, I seen the movie.
Let's see the animated series. So it's gonna pull up the newest one. I know that. This one says it came out in 2012, which we know is not true. Let's see about the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. That came out in 1987, so that's an 80s cartoon. It went
Yes.
all the way till 94, but, 96, but I remember vividly watching that one. I never really watched the new ones. This was more my time.
Yeah, I just
I remember,
watched the movies.
I remember coming to watching that home religiously after school during the 80s, in the late 80s, in the early 90s.
Playing the video games on Nintendo.
Yes.
The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that game was a pain in the ass. Acknowledge. And Kane City mentioned Batman Beyond. So I don't know what year Batman Beyond came out, but I do remember that as a cartoon. Let's see, the animated series came out in '99, so it only went for two. It went for 2 years, but it was a crossover between the end of the '90s and early 2000s.
And Kevin Conroy, he did the voice also for that also. It's older Bruce Wayne. And here's a little fun fact. Originally, Robin Williams was going to do the Riddler in one of the Batman movies, and his two college, which is this is funny, his two college roommates, it was Christopher Reeves and Kevin Conroy were his college roommates.
Interesting.
So yeah, that Heel Mike had brought me that to me earlier this week. Yeah, I said, yeah, I remember hearing about that.
So acknowledge in reference to your Spider-Man that you had posted. The original cartoon came out in the '60s. The next one was out in the '80s, and then another one at the end of the '90s, going into the 2000s. It came out in 1999. So I would say that's probably more of a 2000s cartoon for that series. That was Spider-Man Unlimited.
I remember the '80s one. I don't remember the '90s. The other.
You don't remember the '60s one?
Of course, yes. I forget where I was going with that. Because it was Spider-Man and Friends was the '80s. You had Iceman, Spider-Man, and Firestarter or Firestarter, I think was her name, were the three that were featured in the very beginning when the song came up. And then no, the Incredible Hulk never had. His was in the '80s.
I'm trying to think of what other ones that would have been. because they do so many different ones. I feel like they revisit them every decade or every 20 years, bringing ones out. But the Superman one we talked about already.
Mhm.
I don't think if there's any other ones.
None
Oh,
that.
I just remembered one. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. Captain Planet.
Yes.
Yes. I remember Captain Planet.
That started in 1990 and it went to 1996.
On
That
TBS.
was on TBS. You're right. Yep. That was a good cartoon.
It was.
It was
Was
I forgot all about it.
not about.
that
What
one.
about?
Now this is bringing back other ones. Thundercats, or was that more of an 80s?
That was the 80s.
Okay.
I remember Thundercats.
So Voltron, 80s.
80s.
Transformers.
Well, it's been done in the 80s. It's been done in the 90s.
Yeah.
Continuation. It's a
Yep.
continuation.
Yeah.
But its heyday was the 80s to me. That's the way that's my opinion.
Yeah, the first one was 84. That went for 3 years. Trying to think of what else. What other cartoons now? Well, there was Beast
I don't
Wars that came
think-
out in the 90s.
I don't think Magic School Bus was a cartoon though.
That was. I never watched that one. I remember I saw that earlier, but I think that was more towards the early 2000s also.
Yeah, but I remember watching it.
GI. I don't know if they ever did an updated version of GI Joe.
Let's see.
I remember G.I. Joe.
I mean, they had the movies later on.
Yeah, the movie. Yeah, I'm talking about more so the cartoons because I remember the 80s
That was
cartoon.
Yeah, that was 80s. I don't remember if they did one after that. Do you remember
Or
the show The Mask?
Yes, I sure do.
It was like it was like almost like a crossover between GI Joe and Transformers. Right?
Yes.
Where the cars transformed, but it would only it was not they weren't alive. They would just go from like a car to like a plane or like a car to a boat type thing.
Yes, and there was a rumor for a little while that there was going to be made into a live action movie, but it never fell through. This was a couple of years ago. At one of the local comic book stores I go to, someone up and said there was a YouTube video that was recently posted. I was like, it's a fake YouTube. It's scenes from Iron Man and stuff like that. It's not. There's no movie coming out. So I was hoping there would be because it was a good '80s cartoon.
All right.
And you had
good. Sorry.
You had GoBots back in the '80s,
GoBots. Yep.
which was to me was a ripoff of Transformers.
Yeah, I just found some. That's why I was a little excited. I found some other ones. Johnny Quest
Yes.
came out in '96. You had Street Sharks.
Street Sharks.
Street Sharks.
I think I remember Street Sharks.
It was sharks that played roller hockey.
Yes. I remember now.
No, I don't remember
They
that.
had, what was it, Rampage? Those characters from the 90s?
I think so. You had Fantastic Four. Also came out in the '90s. There was a '90s version of that. Iron Man had one in the '90s. So there was a lot of cartoons. Like going back, this brings back a lot of memories discussing all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Street
Wow.
Sharks.
Oh yeah, they did play roller hockey, yeah.
I remember that one now. That was a good show.
Street Sharks.
You had
Never heard of.
Sonic.
I remember Sonic. Was Dexter Laboratory 90s or 2000s?
Oh, Dexter's. That was a Cartoon Network show. Let's see. Dexter's Laboratory. 96. So yeah, that would be a 90s one as well.
Okay.
That was a good one.
Yeah. The only one I liked when they had the name tag and naming everything around the laboratory in the house.
That reminds me. What about this one? Let's see. Let's see. When was this originally set? I can only see the new information about the possible revival of Phineas and Ferb.
Yes, I watched Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, there's a whole revival coming back out on Disney. I just can't find anything about the
Isn't it
original.
more like the 2000 cartoon than the 90s?
I don't remember. My daughter watched it more than I did, but
Yeah,
that's because she.
Phineas
It
was
was
like
2007.
2000s.
2007.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
they're coming out with a new one. It was ordered a revival for Disney, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Here we go. It's just there's a bunch of Spider-Man stuff, cartoons on Disney Plus. Spider-Woman.
Wasn't that only like one season? Wasn't that like short and sweet?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was 1979.
What does the chat think? Is there any other 90s cartoons that you want to
Yeah.
bring up or talk about? Kane said Magic School Bus was pretty good. I never watched that one. That was a little.
It's where they go on a field trip and the bus turns into like different things. And they had
yeah,
like a
that came
lizard
out-
as a pet.
That came out 94 to 96. So that would be considered a 90s cartoon.
Spider-Man and I think I said it was Amazing Friends. It came out in 81.
Yeah, but then there was another Spider-Man cartoon that came out 94 to 97.
Okay. That wasn't the one with that Neil Patrick Harris did the voice of. That might have been. He did the voice of Peter Parker on the one that was on MTV.
Doogie Howser?
Yes, Doogie. Good old Doogie. Or from when he played on How I Met Your Mother.
That was a good show.
Totally opposite role for him.
Yeah, then they bought How I Met Your Father with Hilary Duff.
Let's see.
Dude, I can't think of any other. Thinking.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's. I mean, we had a wide
Yeah.
variety of shows that we went over, so there's a lot in there. But anything else you want to bring up tonight?
There will not be a show next week.
No, we will all be watching the Royal Rumble.
No, I will not be anyway. After you get.
I'll be watching the Royal Rumble. And 4 more minutes, I'll be 32.
Oh, your birthday's tomorrow?
Yes.
Yep.
Happy birthday. Mine's on Tuesday.
Thank you.
So there will be no show next week, guys. Everyone will be watching the Rumble.
Yep.
It would be just way too much for everyone.
I saw the
We'll all be burnt out.
thing. They redid the thing for the 30th anniversary.
Yes.
They're going to do a trial for Sami Zayn.
Yep, they switched over the bloodline coronation for Roman Reigns based off of what happened.
To a trial for Sami.
Yep. If you guys are interested in wrestling, obviously on this channel we also do multiple wrestling podcasts We do one every Friday night called This Week in Wrestling. Myself and Cam usually host that. We go over everything from the previous week. We will be doing our Royal Rumble predictions live on Thursday night at 9 p.m. More welcome to come join us. We would like to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yes.
Yep. And they announced Solo versus Kevin Owens for Friday.
Oh, nice.
Yep. My friend Sherry Solo announced that he is having a match with Kevin Owens on Friday.
So, Brian, where can they find you outside of this channel?
I am on Twitter at Bryan Nason 7. You can find me also on TikTok at Brian Loves Moonshine. And that is where you can find me at.
Matt, what about yourself?
You can find me on TikTok at Pure Skulls, Switch at Pure Skulls. Instagram is Matt Thomas 431, and don't remember my Twitter.
So, you can find myself here on Off the Top Media. It is the same on YouTube. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit a like and subscribe. This way you get the notifications of when we have new episodes coming out. We want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed our evaluation of 90s cartoons, and we hope to catch you again in 2 weeks. Be on the lookout. We'll be putting out the topic early of that week, so look for it roughly around, I would say, January 31st, February 1st. This way you can get your ideas, and hopefully you can join in our conversations then as well. I hope you all have a great evening, and thank you for Brian and Matt for leading the show.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have. I was honored to be on here, and we hope to catch you guys soon. Have a good evening.
Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone.
All right, we're off.